Thanks very much, Colin. And yeah, thanks to Gary and the team for having me back again. It's always great. As Colin just mentioned, I came from Dubai. That's a 16-hour flight. But it is really a great community and a great feeling and great, great chance to network and, really talk with some interesting people and, yeah, share some thoughts and ideas. So last year, I gave a bit more of a serious in-depth talk about the quality of money, and we kind of got really technical economically. So this year we're balancing it out. We're going to have a meme review. So, we've heard all these different ideas in Bitcoin, things like number go up and hodl and Bitcoin fixes this and all these other things. So, we've got these memes, okay? And so what I'm going to do today is tier rank them. All right, we're going to rank them. What is the purpose of some of these memes, or what is the role that they play? I think part of that is because it takes a lot to really read and understand the economics and the technology of Bitcoin, right? It means, not everybody's going to go and read these, 800-page tomes to understand things like reading Mises' book, Human Action, or going and understanding, let's say, the technical aspects of Bitcoin, maybe to go and read a book like Grokking Bitcoin, or to go and take, let's say, Jimmy Song's courses and read his books about, programming Bitcoin. And so sometimes these memes are a way to condense and very quickly and simply convey some of these key ideas. Now, honorable mention and shout out to my friend Bitstein, aka Michael Goldstein. He'll be speaking later, but he gave a great talk on this. It was called How to Meme Bitcoin to the Moon at BitBlockBoom in 2020, I believe. So that's a great talk as well. I recommend you check it out. But yeah, what we're going to do today is just rank them, rank some of these memes. What is the use of them? And I guess maybe I'm going to share a few of my own thoughts on them. But this is all going to be extremely objective and trust the science. So you may be wondering how I've come up with these ratings. And the answer is I made them up. So now, if we're going to tier ranking, we're going to do the tier ranking. So let's, from top to bottom, rank S, S tier memes, S for Satoshi. You should be shouting these memes from the rooftops. These are the cream of the Bitcoin crop. You should shout them all the time. They're very important Bitcoin memes. A tier is, very, very high value. You should be repeating these memes quite often. They are very, very useful messages, highly valuable that you should, close to S tier. B tier memes are, they're good. They're of moderate importance. They're still valuable. C tier is kind of, middle of the road. It's average. Here and there, it has value. And then now D is kind of the below average memes. They've got notable flaws. E is kind of notable flaws with little redeeming qualities, and F is just complete fail tier, right? So let's go through. We're gonna discuss a few different Bitcoin memes. So, Infinity over 21 million. Now, this relates to, I guess it just, the way Knut Svanholm explains this, he might say something like, imagine everything there is divided by 21 million. And I guess this kind of makes people feel bullish and gives them kind of maybe it can, on the good side, I'll say this, it might expand their frame of mind about, just how big could Bitcoin be, right? It's not just going to be like, 1% of this other small market and 2% of that. No, actually think how big the market for money is. Or if you think about the way Ron Paul explains, he says money is half of every transaction. So it's obviously a big deal. So it's a bullish feeling meme. But where do I disagree with this meme? So I just think it sets the wrong idea in people's minds, because the total wealth of the world actually could be greater than 21 million coins worth, right? As an example, the money supply of the world today might be $30 trillion in base money, but measured in terms of assets, depending on who you talk to and so on, and obviously this graph that from Jesse Myers, aka Crucis, we're talking maybe 500 to 1,000 trillion in assets. So the point I'm trying to make here is the money supply does not contain the entire economy. It's quite possible, if you think about the accounting valuations, that businesses all aggregated together can be more than the supply of the money. So for that reason, I disagreed with Knut on the 21 million. And we've discussed this on podcasts. I did a podcast, I think, in 2020 with him, or 2021 maybe. I've done it. I also went with him on his show, and we spoke about that along with other things. So I'm going to rate this a D. It's got some flaws, but maybe there's some value to it. The super cycle. It's sort of this idea that, look, this time is different, and maybe Bitcoin would not have its typical cycle. Maybe people would understand it better, or it might be a very weak bear market sort of thing. I guess kind of related were people like, let's say, Suzu talking about up only in 2020 and 2021 Bitcoin cycle. So I would say this idea was popularized by Dan Held and others around 2020 and 2021. But that didn't work out, unfortunately, right? That cycle, we went from 69K down to the bottom around 16K. So I hope you didn't quit your day job. And can you explain this gap in your resume? That's when I thought it was the Bitcoin super cycle. So unfortunately, I'm going to rate this one an E. Sorry, but it was a bit overly bullish. And I think this is one thing where, you've got to be wary about these things, because if you're overly bullish, sometimes people get missold, or they get the wrong idea, and then they might end up buying the top, and then they bought the top thinking, oh, there's so much more, it's a super cycle, and unfortunately what we want, fortunately, or put it this way, what we really want is sustainable adoption. We want people to be able to buy Bitcoin and to ideally have a good experience with it and not have to take an 80% drawdown, which can happen and has happened. So I'll just point out as well a couple stats, just loose stats. Depending on how long you've been in Bitcoin, you've seen this multiple times. But if you look in that last column, you can see the peak to trough drawdown is coming down over time. So that is some good news, but we don't know. I think this super cycle idea, you've just got to be wary about it, because we had like an 85% drop in 2013. The 2017 to 2018 was 84%. This the 2020, the 2022 bear cycle, you could say that's about 76%, 77%. So, maybe the next one will be a bit less, but just, be wary, be ready for that. This is an infamous meme, not your keys, not your coins. We've all heard it 1,000 times, but I think we should keep repeating it. It's an infamous saying by Andreas Antonopoulos, and I believe he coined it around 2015 or 2016 or so. It's actually post Mt. Gox, but I think it's a very important lesson. Obviously, it relates to the truth of Bitcoin possession, meaning that he who holds the private keys is the one who may control the coins, and you obviously have to keep them secret in order to stop anybody else from controlling your coins. Now, of course, there'll be times where people touch the stove, and so on. They get wrecked, and this is the mantra. We have to keep repeating this. I think it's quite an important one. It's quite vital. So for me, actually, this is an S tier meme. We should be repeating this quite often, even if not everybody is going to learn straight away. It's just a good guide. All right, so I'm new to Bitcoin. I'm here to fix it, right? This is a classic. We see these people, sometimes they come to Bitcoin, like they think, oh, here's this new idea. Why don't you bring in, I don't know, inflation? Or why don't you bring in this other thing? And sometimes they can get this, some people feel like, oh, wow, these Bitcoin people, they're a bit hardcore. They're not open to my new ideas. But the reality of it is that actually, if you look back in the history of Bitcoin, many of these ideas have come and gone. There have been people proposing all kinds of ideas. Right? Kind of there's this meme of, oh, that technical idea. It was actually Greg Maxwell had that idea, and he was talking about that on Bitcoin Talk Forum in 2011 or 2012 or whatever. So I think this meme for me is it's more explaining and helping people understand that when you come to Bitcoin, be modest, or don't be so don't try to sort of impose your will on the network or change something rapidly, really quickly. First, spend your time to actually learn. Spend your time to actually just sort of listen, understand some of the things in the community that people are saying and the development and things like this. And that is also owing to some of Bitcoin's, let's say, conservative culture in development and security. And so when people come in with this big new idea, it just sort of, and I think that's where this meme comes from. That's where this kind of, I just discovered Bitcoin and I'm here to save it. I've got this idea, right? And a great example would be when Elon Musk was buying Bitcoin in 2021, I think it was. He was sort of ignoring all the things that had gone on before and from the block size war. So he was saying things like, "Oh, look, why don't you just raise the block size and get the transaction capacity up and all these things," completely ignoring all the things that the community had gone through as a result of the block size wars. And so, would he have done better to talk to different people and understand some of the views there about why it's not that simple to just raise the block size? So, but I think it's a great meme. So I'm going to rate this a B. Now, number go up. Okay, so number go up, I believe this actually started as an insult. It was a put down. It was sort of seen as, oh, Bitcoin, like, look at all these other coins, look at all the utility they have. Oh, you Bitcoin, all you've got is number go up. And so then it became one of those things where, how people embrace something, they sort of take it on. It became an insult, but now they've taken it on. Yeah, Bitcoin is number go up technology. And so I recall, so that podcast episode I've got there with Pierre, Rashad, and Safedine, that was January 2020. And that was actually at Pierre Rashad's house, and Safedine was there, and I thought, oh, well, I've got my gear. Let's do a podcast. And so we did this podcast, and so we spoke about this idea of Bitcoin as savings technology, and Safedine spoke about number go up technology. And I think that was probably one of the points where it started to become more and more known and understood. Oh, okay, this is this idea of NGU, number go up technology. So yeah, so that's this idea that it's been embraced by Bitcoiners. And of course, you can add in other memes to it. There's people doing like the midwit meme, and they're kind of talking about, oh no, this, that, and the other. But actually, both the moron and the super genius are just like, look, I just buy because number go up. It's simple. And so it's sort of, it's deceptively clever in a way. It seems like a really dumb idea, but actually, it is kind of clever when you really think about it. Slightly related, people sometimes kind of tweak NGU, or they sort of attack it a little bit by saying, oh, see, I don't. And then some people like to kind of virtue signal about it. They sort of be like, oh, look at those people. They're just here for number go up, but I'm here for the freedom go up. And look how much better I am. It's like, yes, freedom go up is important, but remember, what is the flywheel that drives all of these things and makes all this viable? It's the number go up. So it's sort of, yes, that I think freedom go up and number go up are actually hand in hand. They go together, but number go up is actually what drives a lot of these things, because without that number go up, we wouldn't have got the freedom go up. So, I think it's an important thing to sort of appreciate that aspect, right? Because number go up, whether we like it or not, no matter how many podcasts I do or articles or how many people we speak to, number go up is actually what draws a lot of people into this space. Number go up makes things like the businesses viable because they're getting customers and signups and whatever, whether that's conference attendance and all these things, obviously correlated with number go up. So it is an important meme, despite the virtue signaling and the whatever. It draws attention. It gets more developers, more projects, more mining, all of these things. It's an A tier. This is a very important meme. I think it's good. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. All right, so what does this mean? Okay, so people talk about this idea that, okay, we don't know the supply of fiat currency, but we know there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. So I think it's a really great concept. It really helps people, helps illuminate for people why this concept. And, people usually make examples where, let's say, one Bitcoin today gets you, let's say, a nice car, whereas one Bitcoin in 2014 might have got you groceries for a week. Right, depending on when in 2014. Obviously, examples, people are doing things like pricing homes in Bitcoin. Great example. So it just shows you this idea of, oh, okay, like it might have cost hundreds of Bitcoin for a house in 2016, but now it's single-digit Bitcoin for a house. So I'm rating it a B tier. It's pretty good, worth repeating. Never sell your Bitcoin, right? So it's this idea that, don't sell, only borrow it against it, use some kind of financial technique. Trump famously repeated this at Bitcoin 2024. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's useful, but on the downside, I would say maybe it can maybe lead people to ruin if they're not careful, right? Because if the whole idea is, yeah, just lever up, don't worry, it'll all be good. Well, in practice, if people are levering up beyond their means, or they're taking on unfavorable loan or credit terms, they could end up getting wrecked. And also in practice, I think we're all going to end up selling or spending at some point. So, I mean, if you're going to be literal about it, no, you're going to have to spend some of your coins, and that is effectively like selling. I guess it depends on your definition. Some people say, oh, that's not selling, that's spending. But I mean, ultimately, if you are giving something up to get something else, you are effectively selling that, right? Like if I go to the shop with $10 to buy, I don't know, a drink or whatever, I'm effectively selling my dollars to get that drink, aren't I? So, eventually you're going to have to sell your Bitcoin. But does it work as a guide? For some people, can it be useful in certain contexts? Yes, some rating it a C on my tier ranking. Now, this idea of you're not bullish enough. Some people say this. Some people just want to express their excitement for Bitcoin, but hang on. Maybe some people were the right amount bullish, right? Like if you thought, Bitcoin was frothy in 2017 at 20K, well, yeah, you were the right amount bullish because 20K was the top for that cycle. So, some people were bullish enough. Now, in fairness, there's also another separate argument, which I also make, around cultural, social, economic aspects of what exactly is going to change about the world and how is it going to be better with Bitcoin. And yes, in those ways, yes, it is going to have incredible implications into how our world is going to be from a cultural, social, economic standpoint. So certainly that is important. But ultimately, I think you've got to set the right expectations. And if people are just sort of saying, yeah, see, you're just not bullish enough, it just kind of, to me, it comes off as just like a bit of the engagement hopium stuff. So I'm going to rate it a D. That's how I see it. Okay, Bitcoin fixes this. A classic, and I believe I can take a little bit of credit in this one. I wasn't the only one, but I was one of the people helping to popularize this idea. It came from 2019. My friend Pierre Richard was saying the solution to many problems is Bitcoin, and I said, hey, yeah, actually, Bitcoin fixes this. And then a bunch of us, not just me, a few of us started repeating this idea, and we used it as a very quick, easy way to explain, yes, understand this is a problem that Bitcoin can fix. And of course, there's the direct aspect of maybe when someone's bank account their fiat bank account gets shut down or blocked or whatever, and Bitcoin fixes that. But of course, there's the deeper, again, cultural, economic, social aspects of what is Bitcoin going to fix, because we are stopping the fiat excesses of the fiat printer and fractional reserve banking. So as an example, that one on the left there, I think Giacomo shared that one, but it kind of shows you it's the idea of fiat dystopia, which is creating the state, which is creating this racket, and then there's the crime and the moral evil and the wrong stuff, and Bitcoin is stopping that root cause thing. So I'm going to rate it an A. It's an excellent meme. I think it should be repeated a lot. It's very good. I thought I couldn't rate this an S. Everyone knows that meme of Obama giving a medal to himself. That meme. I thought it would be a bit too slack if I give this one an S. So it's an A for that reason. Bitcoin 1 million in 2025. So these crazy, ridiculous predictions about how much Bitcoin is going to grow. I disagree with that sort of stuff, because I think we've got to set realistic expectations for people. And Bitcoin's growth is on a diminishing returns and diminishing volatility over time. That's just objective, statistical. That's the fact of how it has grown, at least from when it started to now. So Bitcoin has been around since January 3, 2009. What's that? 16 years, but let's say 15 or so years with price history. And over that time, now this chart, I've lifted it from I believe Sminston. I'm not sure. Actually, I'll need to get this. Maybe I'll tweet that out. But you can see there, the point is per epoch, the return and volatility, and that's talking about the return per month and then the standard deviation. And you can see it's coming down over time. That's what we should expect. And so I think this idea that, we're going to 1 million this year, I mean, okay, is it possible? Yes, but it's extremely, extremely unlikely. And you shouldn't be sort of telling that to people as though that's like a very likely outcome, because again, they're going to set the wrong expectation, and they could very likely end up buying a top and then getting wrecked in the next bear cycle. So just that's how I see it. It's a bit of a dubious game theory sort of thing when people say game theory, but they're just kind of imagining some scenario that we hit 1 million this year. Don't get me wrong. I would love it if we hit 1 million this year. It would be fantastic. I just don't think it's likely. So yeah, a few examples there. So I'm gonna give that one an F rating. I just, not that good. Spend and replace, right? So this is like this idea that instead of, sometimes you'll see influencers and people online sort of saying, oh, look, these dastardly hodlers, they're not spending like I am, and it's a moral issue. Now, I personally do earn and spend Bitcoin whenever I can, but I also try to be realistic about how likely is it that we're going to get people to do that when, Bitcoin, it comes back to adoption. I agree a lot with what Parker was saying. If you saw Parker's talk, and I think Parker's approach with Parker Lewis over at Zapprite, what they are doing is a more realistic way to come at this problem, because they are focusing on those people who really do want to spend, and focusing on the demographics and the smaller groups of people who are willing to earn and spend Bitcoin. So that's great. That's good. But I think this idea of like sort of shaming people and being like, you aren't a true Bitcoin, or like, look at all these people who aren't spending Bitcoin, and that's, hodler. And so I think it's getting the wrong focus, and maybe it's the wrong approach. Because remember, most Westerners don't have a payments problem. They have a savings problem, right? And of course, yeah, there's smaller issues like CGT, capital gains, fees, things like that. But I also want to point out here, and this is something that Stephan Kinsella talks about, my friend Bitstein, Michael Goldstein also talks about this, that there's kind of a problem when you have like this activist mindset. If the idea is you're expecting people to sort of all be ideological to get you to do things your way, it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to be sustainable. If you focus on more on like if Bitcoin is, let's say, profitable, and the way you use it is profitable for each of those people, well, then that's a lot more realistic, and that's a lot more likely. Like and so be wary of this sort of activist mindset is what I would say. So I'm going to rate it a C. It has some uses, but I think maybe it's a little misguided in the approach, is what I would say. Even though I do personally earn and spend, it's just we have to be realistic. How many people are going to be ideological about it versus how many people are just going to be sort of normies going with the flow. Don't trust, verify. A core principle, pretty important. I think it's this idea that we talk about in Bitcoin. You should attempt to confirm the truth of things for yourself. Things like run your own Bitcoin node, or stated in other ways, people might say not your node, not your rules, similar to the not your keys idea. So I think it's an important one. This idea that you should be comfortable with the software code that you're running on your machine, and are there other ways in which you should be skeptical and verify things. So I think that's actually a good meme. That said, there can be sometimes where people maybe purity spiral a little too hard on the don't trust, verify, but nevertheless, there is a point at which nevertheless, it's a valuable meme, it's a valuable idea, but you can always take it to some crazy extreme, like, did you build your own computer? Like, not just like pulling the parts together, but did you go and like create your own CPU and all this other, like, okay, yeah, you could take it to whatever level, but just, find a reasonable level and apply that idea. I'm going to rate this an A. I think it's a great meme. And one other one I neglected to put on is the concept of hodling. I think hodling is great. I'm going to give that an S tier. It's truly a fantastic meme. It started from, as some of you may know, from a forum where this guy was talking about his girlfriend was out that night or whatever, and how he wasn't a trader, and pit pat piffy wing wong wang, make $1 million, something like this. You'll see the meme, or it's a famous forum post. And so basically he misspelled hold and put it as hodl, and then that became a very powerful meme, because look, if you hodled, it was very valuable for you. And so, yeah, I think that's an S tier. So that's my overall rankings and ratings, if you will. So I think, yeah, you can see there's a, I tried to put a bit of a mix there so that you've got at least one in each thing there, or in each tier. And yeah, so look, the important ideas are, not your keys, not your coins, hodling, number go up, Bitcoin fixes this, don't trust, verify. I think those are some of the more important Bitcoin memes. Of course, I'm sure people will have their own thoughts and their own rankings. But that's it from me. Thank you. So I think I've got a few minutes. If there are any questions, hands up. Or who disagrees with my tier ratings? Who's like, no, you got it wrong. You should have put it higher, or you should have put that one lower. Anyone? Oh, well, thank you. It's perfect. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I'll leave you with that then. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. See you.